Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Clownversation. Hi, I'm Barnaby. I'm the founder of Clown Spirit. And today I'm going to be talking to the amazing Smoot. Yes, John Turner's in the house, folks. So don't switch off. It's just a conversation with a fellow clown. It's not very serious, we're clowning around. It's really just a clownversation. All right, welcome, folks. So good to see you. If you're new to the Clown Spirit family, you're so welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now. And you see that little thumbs up button down underneath your YouTube box? Click that as well. That gives us a like. And everybody loves a like, right? It's good to give, feels good, good to receive. And what's more is it spreads the love, the clown love, far and wide as well. So today I'm going to be talking to the legend of Canadian clowning, John Turner. He's part of the amazing clown duo Mump and Smoot, who are famous worldwide. He's also a renowned teacher and director. Before I bring him on, though, I just want to remind you that this weekend, tomorrow, in fact, we have a fantastic masterclass with Holly Stoppett. Yes, it is tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time, whatever that time that is for you. And she's going to be looking at playing with the unknown. It's an online masterclass that lasts 2.5 hours. And if you're a member of Clown Spirit Village, did you know that you get to access that clown masterclass as part of your membership? In fact, you also get access to the archive of all the past masterclasses. It's $49 to join, and it's really designed for people who want to bring clowning more into their day-to-day life. We do it with masterclasses, through weekly small group coaching sessions, through an online archive of clown resources, and a bunch of mini courses as well. There's so much there on the Clown Spirit Village, so go and check it out. The link is in the comments below and also in the chat. And speaking of the chat, let's jump into the chat and say hi in the comments. I can see some folks there already. We've got Deb. Hi, Deb. Paul from Coventry. Melanie from Sudbury. Tara. Joanna Bassi. Hey, Joanna. Tugs from Canada. Deb Reynolds from Change Islands, Netherlands, I'm guessing. Karen Haywood, or Chris Haywood in North York. Zach Wolfman from Vancouver. Oh my gosh, we've got so many people jumping in here to catch the amazing John Turner. Now, if you haven't heard about John, you've probably been hiding under a rock somewhere. He is one half of the celebrated clown duo Mump and Smoot and has garnered widespread acclaim for his creative collaborations and captivating performances. He has been working primarily with Mike Kennard and Karen Hines for about the last, I'm going to guess, 30-something years. Just to give you a little flavor of Mump and Smoot, if you haven't seen them before, I have a little quote here from a conversation between Karen Hines, Mike Kennard, and John Turner that was published in a magazine recently. I will tell you about what magazine it is in the notes. So here it is. Kennard and Turner's shared fascinations with horror and mortal fear, magic, theatrical and natural, risky spiritual investigations, dream as a logic base, and the dark aspects of love, among many other fascinations, resulted in the creation of two clowns of horror with the joint credo, enjoy the process of living. These clowns reside on the planet Umo, hope I'm saying that right, worship their clown god Umo, and speak their own language, Umomian. So, to find out more about that, let's invite onto the Clownversation stage Mr. John Turner. Woo!
Wow.
Was that a big enough build-up?
That was a pretty big build-up. That was especially since there's only me here. Where's Mike?
Yeah.
Where's Karen? Anyways, no. This is great.
Karen is going to be on. I haven't got in touch with Mike yet.
Okay.
John, thank you so much for being on. It's a pleasure to meet you and have you here.
My pleasure.
Now, we had a brief Zoom chat a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But we've not actually met before, which is kind of strange because our clown spheres have actually kind of come quite close together, because I was in Toronto for a long time doing work with Sue and, have familiarity with the Pochinko technique. And so, there was always this kind of legend in Toronto of Mump and Smoot. And I did get to see you one time in a cabaret in Toronto. And I have to say that it was mind-blowing. I can't think of any other word to describe it.
Oh, that's good. Good. That's awesome.
It was quite extraordinary, just their visceral energy and power and riskiness of what you guys did. It seemed to me like I assumed that it was quite precisely planned, but it seemed completely off the cuff, wild, risky. So, what did you work like that, or was it? I mean, you don't know which specific number I'm talking about that I saw, of course, but in general, is it tightly planned, or is your work very improvisational?
It's both. It's both. Freedom through structure. So, which is a lesson I learned bartending long before I went into clowning, and from this amazing, wonderful, now it was a longtime friend now, most brilliant bartender I've ever seen, and he could carry on 6 conversations at the bar at the same time, and make drinks for all those people, and serve them lunch, and make drinks for 80 people in the restaurant all at the same time. Conversations on particle physics and the relevance of the Dune series of novels, et cetera, like a wide array of conversations. And the thing that made it work for him, the thing that allowed him to do that or enhanced his ability to do that, was his structure behind that bar was so perfect that he didn't have to think where anything was. He knew every single aspect of it. That movie Cocktail or whatever it was, couldn't touch it, because this guy did all of those flipping bottles, et cetera, without spillage. So anyways, that's where I learned freedom through structure. So when Mike and I and Karen are working, it's all very structured. It's all hardcore directed. We have an awesome relationship in terms of that situation. We script it. It's all very scripted, and that we know what we're now. Having said this, when are you ever ready for opening night? Never are you ready for opening night. And part of the reason for that is we don't even consider a show to be fully written until we've performed it a number of times. Usually, in the old days, around 50. 50, after 50 performances, we'd go, okay, now we know what the show is. But the thing that enables us to grow the show with an audience, which is essential for us, is that we structure what we're doing. We have a relationship structure. We script it. The beats are all scripted, even though it's in primarily in gibberish. Everything is really structured, choreographed. I don't go jumping into his arms. Well, I don't do much of that anymore anyways, but I don't go jumping into his arms without us knowing when it's going to happen. But having said that, as soon as you're in front of an audience, for us, that's when it comes alive. I mean, this is called a Clownversation. Well, that's what it is. It's a conversation with the audience, and the conversation is bidirectional by definition. Otherwise, it's a lecture, and we are far from a lecture. So the audience gets to engage. It's not so much audience participation, although we do have elements of that. There's no question. But it's audience engaging. So whatever's going on in the room, that's what's going on in the room. Beautiful. And that includes ambulances going by, includes some subways rumbling underneath. Ambulances
coming to take away audience members who get
yes, exactly,
or performers.
police raids, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's how it.
We're getting lots of people writing in the chat here.
Oh dear.
I don't know if you can see it, John, but we've got Paul Hooson. Hi, Paul. John McDermott, Mike Bednarek, Pandora.
Oh, Pandora.
I think you know Pandora.
I should clarify something for you. The Change Islands are Deb Reynolds. Yeah. And the Change Islands is a good old friend. That's in Newfoundland.
Oh, and so she wrote NL, so I was like, Netherlands?
Yeah. It's actually an island off the north end of Newfoundland.
It didn't sound very Dutch. I was, yeah. Great. Like, folks, if you're watching and you have questions for John, just throw them into the chat there and we'll feed them into the conversation.
Wow.
Yeah. If that's all right with you, John.
How do I see the chat? Or maybe I don't even want
There is a little tab, if you see it somewhere on your screen, that says comment.
Oh, hide chat. There we go. There we go. Show chat. There we go.
You got it?
Where does it show?
I can't help you with that because it looks different on your side from my side.
Oh, maybe I exit full screen. There we go.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, I'll let you manage the chat. How about that? Otherwise,
yeah. Totally
trouble. Yeah.
Well, here's a little question. I'm going to put it up on the
there
screen.
We go. I can see that.
Can someone please tell me where I can find videos from Mump Smoot performances? I've been searching for a long time and couldn't find much.
There's not a lot out there.
Yeah.
There's not a lot out there. There's a few. I have a few links on my website, on my personal website. If you Google the Mump Smoot in the Boulawa song from Can Stage in 2002, that's maybe my favorite clip. We do a little song and dance thing. It's a show about us, Mump Smoot going on a spiritual retreat to a remote island, and we sing a song about a legendary monster that's supposed to inhabit this island called the Boulawa. Anyways, it eventually knocks Smoot's head off at one point in the show, which has to be reattached, and eviscerates Mump a little at the end too. Anyways, that's yeah. It's been one of the curses. We've tried several times to get good footage, and there's not a lot. There is some stuff on YouTube. I don't think we have any full shows that are. There's a fair bit of stuff from anything, Mump Smoot in anything, which is our. Is that our last show? I think it might be our last show. Our last new show, anyways. Cracked actually, but no, it was anyways. Yeah. So yeah,
well, I kind of like this. I kind of like, in a way, the fact that these performances remain ephemeral, sort of in the minds of the people who watched it, instead of being.
Well, there's no question. It's never been it was never our focus. We did do a short film through the Canadian Film Centre
oh, cool.
Years ago, which I don't even have a copy of. The Princess Who Wouldn't Smile. But it's, yeah, our focus has always been live theater. There's some very embarrassing old videos of Mike and I improvising and practicing, and before we were even Mump Smoot doing improv. But those will remain under wrap until we're dead, I guess.
Well, this is a good segue back in time a little bit then, maybe, because so I've read that you guys, you had a mutual love of horror as a genre, and that's one of the things that brought you together. But what let's go back. Like, what sort of what was your entree into clowning, and then let's move on to how did you connect with Mike and what those early days?
Well, it's sort of all one, because when I met Mike in Second City Improv workshops, and in Bruce Hunter's class, he would love to know that I think that I mentioned him. I think he feels responsible for us, as he should.
That's a good thing.
We met in his class, and we seemed to do quite well. We didn't know each other very well, and it was just from class once a week sort of thing. But we did very well when we were thrown into scenes, into gibberish exercises.
Right.
And so, anyways, we sort of struck it up. Mike was already well along. He had a degree in theater. He has a degree in theater from Guelph University, and he had an agent and everything. I just decided to come in and find my way into performance. And I was 30 already, and it's 36 years, by the way, that we've been doing this.
Oh, right, more than I thought.
Yeah. So then So we met and we became friends, and he was involved in a company that was doing a sketch and improv in bars and nightclubs and stuff. And they had they were quite large, and they had a split, and they invited me. I was up and coming, I guess. They were already at the top level, sort of thing. Invited me to help make up their numbers when they had this split. So I went for a meeting at Mike's studio, and it was just he and I were the only ones that showed up.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
And we had gotten along. We'd gone for beers and stuff after class and that sort of thing. So we thought, well, let's do a duo. And weirdly, a week later, he got a request. It seems to me a week later, he got a request from his agent for a comedy duo videotape to submit for commercials and stuff, for commercial auditions. So we actually had, I believe we had Karen in on that, because she was also in the classes as well at that time. Anyways, we worked on this very embarrassing video. Well, it's pretty fun actually, but we did two old hippies doing an insurance commercial, I think it was. And
special prize for anyone who can locate that online.
Yeah. Oh, good luck. But anyways, we submitted this video, and it never went anywhere. We didn't get anything out of it. And then shortly after, so we decided to work together as a duo. And shortly after that, this word came through the grapevine, and this is in Toronto, and that this guy, Richard Pochinko, was teaching a clown workshop, and Mike suggested it to me one night, and I thought I better find a new partner. I think I actually said I thought we were going to do comedy, and because it just that nothing seemed further from what I would have wanted to do than clowning. And we had actually done a goofy mime clown commercial for a soda pop thing, and it was one of our little bits that we had created for a soda pop called Gingo Pa. And but I had sort of done it just as a joke. It was a joke,
right?
Anyways, so I said, I was sort of like, no, I don't think so. I'm not. And then Karen said, no, this guy's supposed to be a genius. And I'm like, oh man. So then I was actually taking movement classes at his workshop, at his studio at the time, the Theatre Resource Center, and from Fiona Griffiths, who is a genius movement person, and I was improv, and she says to me that week, "Oh, you should think about Richard's doing a baby clown workshop, from mask to clown. It's referred to as mask to clown or clown through mask, but at the end, you're born as a clown." And Richard, once you were in the room, called it the baby clown workshop. So she ganged up, so I caved. At that point, okay, enough. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this stupid workshop, and then I don't want to hear anything about it again after that. Right? So
the rest is history.
The rest is history. 3 months after Baby Clown, we did our first. Richard said, and Richard was a genius, a brilliant, a visionary. He was awesome and wonderful and generous and loving. And so that was awesome. And he suggested we try to get on the boards and cement the work we'd done in Baby Clown as soon as we could within sort of 3 months. So we did a show. We did a 20-minute show called Jump the Gun, because we felt we were way ahead of ourselves in doing a show. So we called it Jump the Gun. It was Mump Smoot meeting for the first time in a post-apocalyptic, destroyed world sort of thing. And it was fun. And it just went from there.
So what was the shift, you would say, from what you were doing before? What was the impact on your work or the way you thought about performing of doing that workshop?
Well, the shift. What was the shift? I think the level of abandonment that clown encouraged. Having a piece of red plastic on my face sort of made it really difficult for me to take myself seriously, which would be my fault, my downfall. So I think there was a level of abandonment that suddenly we could access all these all these elements of our imagination, of our subconscious even. I often think that Richard was influenced by Jung and Taoism as much as by anything else, let alone T.S. Eliot and all the other artists. God only knows what influences had directed his path. But because there's the dream state logic that exists in clown is so much fun and puzzling as well at the same time. So I think that to me was the shift, was the abandonment. And I would go. People always ask about in interviews. We're always asked about who are your influences. My influences were Mike and Karen. I mean, my brothers, my family, my whole family, hilarious. My oldest buddies, brilliant, funny. I have buddies all the way back from grade 2, from being in the choir, a boy choir together. That's where I started performing, was as a concert choir. Yeah, from the age of 7. So that's a shift, going from performing religious music.
Yeah.
Although we did do comic opera as well, and drag. I was Marcelina in a Mozart opera. Anyway, my operetta. Anyways, at the age of like maybe 12. Because we were all boys, I got to play Marcelina. Anyways, so it's a big shift to the abandonment that comes with being a clown. With anything, you can do anything. I think that's maybe the most important thing Richard taught us, was a clown can do anything. So I'd say that was the majority of the shift. The physicality was already there. The fact that both Mike and I were very physical performers, et cetera, et cetera. But as an adult, it was performing as a musician that, and I'm not suggesting I'm still a musician, because it sort of went by the wayside once I started clowning. But I performed as a guitarist and lead singer in a band one night in Calgary at the National Hotel, which at the time was a dive, but it's quite shishi now. And it was one night that made me quit school. I just went, oh my God, this is what I should do. Was to be up in front of people and have fun that way.
And the direct.
And the immediacy, the immediacy of it.
Yeah, the rawness. Folks, just reminding you to write in the chat if you have questions. So John, there was another quote from this article about that first show, Jump the Gun. It says, the crowd went wild and everyone there that night knew something amazing had been birthed. Now there's something about retrospect, 2020 and all that, but was there a special feeling? And if so, what was it you think captured people's attention about this pair of clowns that you created?
Well, that's a big question there, Barnaby.
I'm trying to imagine. We only have an hour.
I have to imagine. I can only imagine what was going through people's minds. I know that we had an absolute blast, and I think, you have to understand that we went into it with the attitude of absolutely destroying the art form. Like to get me to go on stage as a clown, even after doing Baby Clown, was only if, and this was part of what my end of what led us to horror. And we all had a fascination with horror, so it wasn't that I wasn't suggesting it was just me. But from my perspective, this was who does horror as a clown? This is a really interesting thing, because of course later we found out something quite different. But who would do, eviscerate somebody as a clown, et cetera, et cetera. So that was what appealed to me, was we are going to destroy this art form. We're going to disassemble it. We're going to rip it apart. And of course, that is the very nature of clowning. But we were going to do it we intended to do it thoughtfully, and we intended to get away with it. It's something that I think a lot of people that hear the rule take a risk, be risky. That means you can do anything and you can do anything, but they forget the second part of that is you have to get away with it. And that's where I think where the skill comes in.
Mm.
And we did not have all that much skill at the beginning, but we got away with some stuff. And I was shot. Smoot was shot 6 times, and Mump was exploded with leaving nothing left but a twitching hand. So that was in our first show. So I think, in that regard, I think that's maybe what was appealing. But I think what's always sells it is when there's 2 clowns on stage, when there's 2 people on stage in any kind of theater. The only thing that matters is the relationship between them.
Mm.
And I think, for me, I think the nature of how we've attended to the relationship between Mump and Smoot is really what does it. Is really what is the appealing thing, and that is what is absolutely in any moment in the piece. It's what is going on in the relationship between them.
And did that relationship evolve over time as the shows were in different shows, or was it always sort of the same relationship expressed in different ways?
We certainly try to mix it up, mostly for our own interest's sake. But the status is always there. But we also, there's another rule in some schools of thought in clown, that once you're an Auguste, you're always an Auguste. That's all you'll ever be. Once you're a Joey, that's all you'll ever be. Well, of course, Richard, and even some of the people who adhere to those rules also say we all possess all aspects of humanity, which I believe. So that would suggest that we all have a high status and we all have a low status, and certainly Richard went by that. But there are others who will profess that, but will also say, but yeah, but you can only ever be an Auguste, you can only ever be a Joey, a high status or low status. And we never believed that. We adhered to we can be either. When we first presented ourselves to Richard to discuss status, I was pretty sure I was going to be high status. Didn't quite work out. But that idea that we switch status in every show. At some point in the show, the status changes and Smoot becomes the higher status. Maybe not in every single scene, but certainly in every full show, there's a status switch at some point. It's part of what creates an awesome dynamic, is that anything can change at any time.
Yeah.
So I think so. Yes, we sort of try with every show. We look at where we're at ourselves in our lives, where the world is at, et cetera, et cetera. We tend to stay away from socio-political elements. We tend to stay away from sex. We try to make everything about the relationship between these 2 Umonian. You nailed it the first time you said it, was Umo, and it comes from the UM of Mump and the MO from Smoot. So we pronounce it Umo. I think we certainly look in every show for whatever's new for us, whatever we talk about dreams we've had, we talk about special effects we've seen that we'd like to try. There's a whole range of stuff that we enter into when we go to create a show. But I think each one is generally reflecting where we're at, which is, of course, a reflection of where the world is at too, theoretically.
I think you just inadvertently answered this question, which just came in from Melanie. Does your clown age or stay in the same life stage? Or would that need to be explored in the same way as baby/advanced clown workshop?
Well, I'll answer one way is there are things I can't do anymore that I could do 35 years ago.
Surely not.
I actually used to have in my original Smoot, in my cap, I had a little hole in the cap right here in the center of my head.
Yeah.
With a little tuft of hair sticking out. Well, that hole would have to go back here somewhere now.
You could have some kind of wig, surely. You could have some like artificial.
I suppose.
That could be a good joke.
Yeah. But no, I think it is whoever you are. Really. For me, it is whoever you are. So I think we had, for example, we had a couple of years where a lot of really harsh stuff had happened in each of our lives. From my perspective, our house burned down. We lost our house on Manitoulin Island. And there were similar elements in Mike and Karen's lives that it was about a year and a half where we all seemed to face a pretty serious event in our lives. And that show was anything. It became the Mump and Smoot in anything with regards to, you never know, anything can happen. And so there's no question that whatever's going on in our lives influences each show. So if age influences the show, then it would be there. But do clowns get older? Yeah, of course they do. Sure.
Yeah, I love that. So one of the things it seems to me that Richard, what you were doing when you were sort of rebelling against the art form of clown, that was completely in the spirit of Richard's work as well, right? Like he went to Lecoq and then he kind of abandoned it and went in a different direction. He was trying to overturn it in his own way. But I also wonder if the spiritual or metaphysical side of the work, it was something that, do you retain that in your work, or do you feel like you've gone in a different direction? Because that was really important for Richard, right?
Yes. Well, it's funny because I was invited to the United Church in Little Current on Manitoulin Island when we were first there to do a chat about clown and spirituality. And basically so I did, but basically my response was, yeah, whatever, it's just spirituality. Live performance, you're in front of the energy of up to hundreds of thousands, maybe. We haven't quite hit that yet, but we've certainly been in front of 700 people, and I think that carries with it an enormous responsibility. And it's not a responsibility to perform for them. It's a responsibility to go within yourself, I think. And that can come out as mundane. It doesn't matter. This is where I think people get a little bit messed up, is as much as Richard was into the spiritual, I can remember seeing him going over to somebody basically having a psychotic break in the middle of a class and going, it's just an emotion, right? And it is that, it's just what we are. It doesn't have to be it's not like a clown has some special access to some mystical element in the universe. If you look into particle physics these days, the whole universe is energy. We all have access to these things, but certainly there is a physical, there's an emotional, and there's a spiritual level to it. One of the things we're very careful about, I'm very careful about, is I don't dictate that. I don't teach that. That's for the individual to come to their own situation that way. There's enough people in the world that are interested in telling you what spiritual means, without me adding to the throng. As far as I'm concerned, that's an individual's decision. Having said that, it's serious work. It's serious work that demands respect and compassion, and love, and self-examination on a constant, regular basis. So yes, is there a spiritual aspect to it? Yes. Have I got anything to say about it? Not much more than just that. That's up to you.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you answered the question very, very honestly. I guess I'm also thinking about the process, not just being in front of the audience, but the kind of the color work, the masks, the breath work. I mean, there's a kind of sacred quality to some of those practices, which is not necessarily specific to a culture, but draws on or is very similar to breath work and spirituality in lots of cultures. But there's something there that seems to me kind of like that we're being asked to, or being encouraged to, or practicing accessing some invisible maybe mystical qualities and drawing on those in our creative process?
Yeah. But that results in me getting a fork stuck in my head in the middle of of eating spaghetti in a cafe.
Right.
Like, come on. It's really interesting. I have a wonderful colleague who we cross fertilize quite regularly. He's a Jungian therapist, and we've sort of following each other for many years, 20, 30 years probably, through our lives, and we cross fertilize quite regularly. And one of the wonderful things he said, what elevates something from being say craft to art is the involvement of the divine, right? And I agree with that, but I would also say it's just the divine. It's everybody has access to it. It's just the divine. And if you want to go through the class and just have a whole thing just be a joke to you, that's still divine, right? So my concern when spiritual aspect is brought into it, and don't get me wrong, Mike and I in our private conversations when we're developing work, et cetera, and with Karen as well, there's no question that there's that aspect to it. But in the teaching, the exercises are just the exercises. I spend half my time demystifying, and the other half of the time, well, it is special. I mystifying it. The idea being that's up to the individual doing the work. If I start going this is for me, understand this is just for me. If I start going down that path of what I'm going to help you do is discover the spiritual aspect of this work. We're going to go on a spiritual journey in this workshop, setting myself up as some kind of spiritual guide or accompanier on their spiritual path. For me, it creates a power dynamic that is antithetical to what Richard was teaching, because for me, what I got out of that class was it was about what I believe. It wasn't about what Richard believed. It was what his work was doing was empowering the individual through their own process. One person's red is another person's mask 3 West innocence, right? There's no external paradigm that you can bring into that class. They're simple, straightforward exercises. The degree to which you achieve whatever you achieve in that class is perfect. So there's no gradation of spiritual engagement. One person can be levitating off the ground and flying through the room like a witch or a sorcerer, and another person be going, what the? It doesn't matter. There's no difference between those two experiences, because it's only about what the individual is experiencing, and it's not about what I'm experiencing.
Fascinating. And then what's your job? I'm seeing
you asked that because we touched on that a bit before.
Yeah. This is exactly where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So I can see kind of your job as a teacher, but then what about as a director when it comes to connecting that with an audience or making that relatable or something? Or
great, good follow-up, because that's a different situation. However, it still is about the individual who's doing the creating. If someone comes to me and they're creating their work, my job is they're creating their own work, and my job as a director is to help them achieve their vision, regardless of what it is. And of course, they may have an aspect of their vision that I'm not compatible with, and at which point I would say, I'm probably not the guy for you. There may be, it's quite intimate work working with someone, evolving their creation, accompanying them on the evolution of their creation. For my money, I remember seeing a show in the fringe of a company that we accompanied in fringe tours in the early days on several years through several years, and they came with a show one year, and they it was their show. They had created beautiful shows, and I actually really liked the show. I actually thought it was really cool, but they were not happy. They were constantly felt like they were doing a show that wasn't entirely theirs. Their director had been so strong and powerful in their work, which is often why we'll turn down a young student coming in saying, we'll actually say, why don't you get one of your peers? I'll come and watch a run through and give you some notes. Have one of your peers. The thing that was perfect about Karen and Mike and I is we were all peers.
Yeah.
And so you know, when choosing who to work with on a project, and I've directed several projects, obviously, and coached on many more. You take each individual situation, you find out where they're at, you find out where you're at, you find the overlap. What can I bring to this? Is it worth having you engage me? At what level is it worth having you engage me? And finally, I always enter into the conversation where I say, and at any point in this process, if you decide, or I decide that maybe we're going like this, then that's the end of it, and there'll be no repercussions, no negative repercussions from that. Whoever the creator is, whoever is the person taking the lead on the creation is the one in charge. And
yeah, that's really, really interesting, because it is a really delicate process, right? It's like a collaboration, but as a director, it's not really your baby. It's their baby.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of be the, I don't know, the midwife, or I don't know what the analogy is.
I know this. No. Well, and it's different with every project, right? It's completely different with every project.
Right, because with Karen, presumably she does feel it's her baby as well. I mean, you were guys, three of you working totally as a unit.
Absolutely. And I directed one of the Poxy shows. I directed Poxy, and I directed the third Poxy show, but I've coached on, you know, or given my 2 cents worth on pretty much almost everything that she's done. So at various levels, and depending on, well, of course, we live pretty far apart right now, so we've done some stuff online, et cetera, et cetera. But every situation is different, and every situation should be treated differently.
Yeah. And you've worked on Mike's. You've directed Mike as well in the solo show.
Yeah, I directed him in his solo show, and that was a blast. I've had so much fun. The variety of work that I've touched on in my career has been just so wonderful. I've worked a lot with dancers. I've worked in First Nations. It's been fantastic. But every situation has to be completely different. This is my toolkit. What have I got here that I can apply, that I can prod you with, or whatever? And when it takes you in a direction you don't want to go in, you give me a slap. It's as simple as that. There's a different, you know, in a lot of theater, the director is going, oh, I'm going to direct this play. I'm casting it. I'm doing, you know, that's a different situation where the actors are brought into in large. A good director is going to use what the actor has as best they can, but basically it's the director's vision, right? It's often seen as the director's vision of the piece, and often they'll be criticized on that basis. In this work, when you're directing someone doing their own work, it's not the same. It's not the same thing, and ego becomes a very interesting element, because it's you are constantly you have to keep an eye on your ego. You make all these offers and they don't take any of them, and you go, what am I doing here? But sometimes it's just important to have somebody there.
Yeah. Well, I can identify with having problems with one's ego. That's a big deal. So, you know, it's really ironic that, you know, you came in with this kind of like almost like hate or cynicism about clowning. you've ended up as like, that's what people know you for. And I want to push you a little bit more on what is clowning for you, because this isn't a question I normally ask, actually, but I'm really curious with you, because I feel like there's a kind of almost like a distancing that you still want to maintain from that thing. You mentioned that clowning maybe has to do with not having limits, you know, being able to do anything. You also mentioned that, you know, it's this rebellion against I don't know, the tradition or the norm or the structure. Are either of those things kind of defining of clown for you, or is there a clown essence, or is it too nebulous to be able to pin it down in that way?
Well, that's well put. Is it too nebulous? Quite possibly, yes. It is quite possibly too nebulous. The funny thing was, we thought we were doing this this amazing thing of bringing horror into clown, and we have a wake scene where we are mourning we're mourning the death of a clown mentor, of a clown friend, and we come in to view the body, and we're weeping, and through our prayers and stuff, and trying to bring him back and all this, we end up by mistake pulling his arm off and knocking his head off, and we end up playing baseball with the head in the arm, and then realize our madness and put him back together again. And we thought with that was our pretty much our second or third piece we ever created, third or fourth piece we ever created,
Wow.
short piece we ever created. And we actually performed it a week before Richard died at a huge multi performance thing in Toronto. Anyways, the funny thing was, years later, we had a guy we have a good friend who was doing some manager stuff for us, and he came in, he found some clip or a comic book or something from like the 40s or the 50s of two clowns playing baseball with the head and the arm of a loved one.
No
and
way.
We're like, it's all been done. It's all been done. And then you see a circus clown thing from the 50s of these guys going around the ring, and this guy getting an axe in his head, and then apparently the story of, you know, they put a block of wood in his head, and one night he was drunk and he came in and he forgot to put the block in, and he killed him. You know, so it's all been done. We thought we were you know, challenging the status quo on clown, and to some extent we were, but also to some extent that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I had I've been through tons of therapy, because I love therapy. You get to go in and talk about yourself.
Me too.
Yeah. I've had many different therapists. I don't have one right now, except my dog, who's maybe the best one. Anyways, this one, it was early on, and it was early on. We'd done two shows, been quite big hits in the Fringe and with runs in Toronto. The second one was the one that went off Broadway, and I had practically a nervous breakdown. I didn't really. Okay, I didn't mean to belittle mental health there. I did not have a nervous breakdown, but I was panicking, because all of a sudden my psychiatrist goes, "You're the establishment now," and I went, "What the fuck? Like, what do you mean we're the establishment?" Well, you're that, and then, so all of a sudden now we had to bring ourselves down.
Right.
We had to tear down us now. So it was a sudden it was a sudden realization that this is a cycle that never ends. What is clown? What is I will say this. I always say this. I say this often. Anybody who's watching that that's worked with me will know this. As soon as anyone tells you what clown is, I say start looking for the reason that it's not that. For a clown's response to that, I mean, for some people it's one thing, for somebody else it's something else. To me, it's like trying to define music. What's music? Well, there's a great definition of music in the movie Hannah. I think it's taken from probably from the Oxford Dictionary or the Webster Dictionary. And I borrowed it and sort of ripped it off and then expanded on it a little bit. But to me, it's anything you want it to be.
Yeah.
You sit there and go, what is music? Well, what do you mean?
Is it worth looking for definitions? Is that a waste of time then? Or actually, is it quite interesting because then you've got something to push against?
I think it's fine to look for it. I think it's fine to look for it. I find when people say things like the clown must always fail, I just go out of my mind. Out of my mind. Or the clown must always be funny. That's another one. What art form is fettered with the restriction of having to be something? Oh, painting. Oh, you're a painter. So you paint at children's, you paint for children then. That's the other one.
Right.
Clown has to be for children. It's
right.
for children. Right. That's what I thought. That's when Mike came to me with let's do a clown workshop. I was like, no. And we don't perform for children. Children love it.
Yeah, I should hope not.
The children love it. My nieces and nephews used to love coming behind backstage and tasting the blood because it's zesty mint flavor. But,
well, before we came on, you mentioned that you'd done a children's TV show together with Mike, and I was like, "Wow, what were you doing there?"
We did this wonderful woman who's a United Church minister. Actually married my wife and I eventually. Yeah, she had a kids television show called Blue Rainbow, and she was producing it in New Brunswick. She had a place there. And anyways, we had a wonderful time with her and Lucia Luzanne. And anyways, she had been doing it for many years, and she'd had a clown, but they were going their separate ways or whatever. And she'd been to see. She was also a therapist. My mother was a therapist as well. They were friends, and she had been to see us doing our second show, Caged, and which afterwards she and her my mother and her therapist friends all said to my mother, "Good God, Jen, what did you do to that boy?" Anyways, so which is I love that story. So she invited us in, and we said, well, we won't do Mump Smoot because it's for children, and we don't want to be pigeonholed into a children's entertainment thing. So we'll do two different characters if that's okay with you. And she said, great. So we shaved our heads. We actually had to shave our heads there. We both had some hair, and we shaved our heads and drew veins and used Blythe spirit and ghost makeup with veins sticking out. We blacked our teeth all up and we were way more horrific than Mump Smoot. And we were these little sort of troll guys that lived underground beneath. Wow. And would come up through her wood box or whatever in her cabin. We lived under her house, and we'd come up, and she was writing stories. She was writing a long story, each episode adding a little more, and out of each episode we would take one aspect of that story and illustrate it some way between the two of us. And so it was that's how it came about. But it was, in a way, there was these two trolls living under this woman's house.
I love it. I mean, you're really bringing the grotesque even to the children.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, clowning has a long association with the grotesque, right? Going back, for almost forever, probably. I mean, it just is. And so when people say that they want to distance themselves, when I hear clowns say that they want to distance themselves from this kind of horror reputation imagery around clowning, I always come back with like, well, yeah, I can see why, but there's a reason why that there is an association between those two things, and it goes back a really long way. And you brought the horror sort of in connection with clowning, but then how do you feel about how that has been appropriated in terms of certain movies and Halloween costumes and the kind of imagery that now people have in their heads of clowns as this scary image, you know, that keeps them awake at night?
Yeah, well, that's I care enough not to care about that. The Killer Clowns from Outer Space, hilarious movie. You know, we were doing our second, I think it was Caged, or maybe it was it might have been Furno, actually. I think it was Furno we were doing, where we try to fly a plane because the pilot's late and we crash and we die and we're in purgatory or whatever, or hell, and depending on your interpretation, and we start eating our limbs from our crash site, our own. They were, anyways. It was a horrific enough show, and we got this. Somebody was. I didn't even know there was a Canadian Clown Association. Apparently, there is a Canadian Clown Association, and I'm not distancing myself. I'm quite engaged, but we got this. We were doing an interview, a telephone interview, for a newspaper, CBC or something, and they said, "How do you feel this movie? The Canadian Clown Association has come out with protesting because this movie has used clowns to rob a bank. They put on clown stuff to rob a bank." I can't remember. Bill Murray was in it or somebody. I can't remember who was in it. And we're like, we're eating our own limbs.
Come on.
You're worried about them wearing a mask to go to rob a bank. So you know, again, all aspects of humanity.
Yeah.
It's an art form. Clowning is an art form. If you play the saxophone, if you play the violin, are you a fiddler? Oh my God, you can't possibly be playing classical music. All violins should be fiddle music from Scotland. You know, what kind of bullshit is that? Sorry, are we allowed to swear on this show? I don't know. Okay.
It's up to you.
It's like, it's an art form. There's no limits to what you can engage with. So I'm not going to, you know, if it's a children's clown. One of the most amazing things I've ever seen, this wonderful, I wish I could remember her name. Anyways, an Edmonton clown was this little big polka dots costume, kids clown, you know, with little doll, you know, just flowers and stuff, just total. It was at the Street Performance Festival in Edmonton. And there's this Gina Bastoni, this wonderful clown. I think she's in Montreal. Anyways, you can look her up. She's at my age range, and she had this horrific nude suit, like of a 200-year-old woman with it was she put it on and it was like breasts out like this, and it was all sort of tarnished, and she had scraggly hair, and she came out. This children's clown is coming out on the stage in Edmonton, and was dealing with the kids, and the kids were, oh yay, it's so and so the clown, and all really sweet, innocent stuff. And she comes out with a cigarette. Gina comes out with a cigarette like this. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. That's not fair. It's not fair. You can't do that to this poor little children's clown, right? And she comes out and she's smoking a cigarette. She's going like this, and she's gonna destroy this children's clown, right? She's gonna destroy it because I'm the like this. And she comes up and stands beside, and finally this innocent, sweet, beautiful little clown for the children becomes aware that she's upstage and has come up and is coming down stage towards her, and she turns and looks at her, and she looks at her like this, and she looks straight at her breasts and looks back at her face, and she's like, her face is like this, going, oh, and she's looking at it, and then she goes and starts poking her breasts, and then pokes her breasts and looks out at the audience and goes, like this, right? And destroyed her.
Brilliant.
Destroyed the grotesque, like eliminated the effect. And that was one of the most important lessons I've ever learned in clown. And here I was like, oh, I was an inch away from getting up and saying, and grabbing Jeannie and saying, don't do this. It's not fair. It's not nice, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And Gina's enough of a genius that they were probably intending that the whole time. But
yeah,
But the point for me was, stop defining things. We've got way too many definitions in this world. What it's about is this. It's about a heart. It's about a heart. And it doesn't matter if it's in a grotesque body or in a beautiful body. It doesn't matter if it's innocent or experienced. It's all things. It's all things. And so, yeah, so this is where the definition thing, what is it? It's, I like dream state logic. I like those aspects of it. I like subconscious aspects of it. I like that it can be anything. It's an expression of emotion. It's a response to stimuli, external stimuli and internal events. It often goes to the bizarre, but it can be mundane. Carol Burnett dancing with a broom, or like, it's just, there's no stop trying to limit it, stop trying to define it, stop trying to say it has to be funny or they have to fail. There's a whole thing about status. There's a lot of cultures that disagree with the status thing, that in a traditional European sense it may be quite firm, but status is status, and it's there all the time. If you have two people, there's a status situation going on, and it can switch and it can move, but it's there.
John, we have to wrap up soon, but I had this question.
Forget it. We're going on. We're doing 2 hours, man.
I know, right? We just need to keep going. Well, can we have Mike join you at some point and do something together? Do you think he would do that?
We'd have to ask Mike.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And certainly Karen.
Oh, yes, Karen.
There's a question here which maybe we could finish on, just because it's a kind of point of clarification, because we're assuming people sort of understand certain terminology. And it also connects with a question that I wanted to leave on, which was like, what's happening now in you? What is available for people to come and do with you? And the question actually, somebody said, what an apprentice in the world of clown. So I'd like to understand better. What do you mean by baby clown? And there's something very specific. So do you want to just speak to what baby clown is, and also are you still doing it? Are you still teaching that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm teaching it. My next gig is at 1 North Clown and Creation in Sudbury, Ontario. It's an awesome setup. I'd highly advise checking it out. 1northclownandcreation.ca is where you'd find that.
Okay, I'll find that website and I'll put it into the chat while you're talking. Great.
Jenny Hazelton is basically, it's a continuation of what was the Clown Farm, which I ran, and Jenny is carrying it on in a great situation in Sudbury. Anyways, Baby Clown is just the name. Richard evolved a workshop from 1 mask to 3 masks to 6 masks, eventually over time to the Baby Clown workshop. He called it From Mask to Clown, or Clown Through Mask. It was the idea being, at the end, you're born as a clown. And so we have a birthday party and everything. And so once you got in, he didn't generally advertise it as Baby Clown. I don't remember that. I probably wouldn't have taken it if he had. But once you were in there, it was Baby Clown. This is what you're doing. You're doing Baby Clown, and you create 6 masks. You do a lot of color work with the colors of the visible light spectrum, the 7 colors of the visible light spectrum, and you evolve the beginnings of the playground. They're like, the 6 masks are like street lights for your playground, and they're in different positions to illuminate your creative world. There's innocence and experience with each mask. As opposed, we don't talk about children and adults. We talk about innocence and experience. So it basically is you create over 100 hours a structure for a lifetime of continued exploration. It's the beginning of Pochinko style clown training. It's the true beginning. Some people sometimes will teach a weekend workshop or something, but really Baby Clown for me is the beginning of it. That's where you start. From there, you can do anything. You can take more advanced classes, et cetera, also, which there's a lot of stuff offered at 1 North Clown and Creation. What was the other part? I've taught people who have are already professional clowns take Baby Clown. It's just you don't have to take Baby Clown to become a clown. Roberto Benigni never took it. To my knowledge anyways. So, but it is the basic Pochinko. Pochinko's legacy is really in baby clown, is what he evolved through the baby clown workshop.
So you're teaching baby clown June 15th to 30th at One North Clown. So yeah. I put the link in the chat there. So anybody, Jack or anybody else who's interested and in studying with John, that's coming up. And just briefly, John, what else is coming up sort of in the next 6 months?
You said briefly to me? I can't believe you said that. Next 6 months, I'm here working on some stuff. I'm working on some writing. I'm possibly going to Europe, to Germany and Belgium, and possibly even Austria as well in the summer after I'm at One North. And we're waiting to hear about some grant stuff as to whether or not or when we'll be able to start to work on a new Mump Smoot show.
Oh, wow, that's exciting.
Well, we'll see. We're hopeful, but yeah, it's quite a. Mike lives in Alberta and I live here, so we're thousands of kilometers apart. But we're hopeful. So there's all sorts of stuff in the works right now. Yeah. That was brief. That was brief,
John. I have to say that there's a lot still to talk about and a lot on the table that I want to revisit. But this has been a great start and so many beautiful sort of articulations of ideas that you've given us today to think about.
Great. Well, I've had a blast.
I just want to thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Right. Thanks for listening, whoever's out there.
Yeah. All right. Bye for now, John.
Bye. Take care.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining me yet again for a Clownversation. Wasn't that a treat? I could tell that you were all just lapping that up. Thanks for being here. Next week, I'm going to be talking to Patch Adams of Gesundheit fame. And that is going to be a super fun Clownversation. So tune in for that one. And of course, don't forget, if you want to take a masterclass with Holly Stoppett online tomorrow, you can sign up. The link is in the comments right underneath this video. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for being here and keep clowning.